Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, we are going over an updated top 5 freemium ships list at the suggestion of Seabar, who left his suggestion in last week's top 5 video. If you have an idea and you would like to see it made into a top 5 video, leave it in the comments down below. You might find yourself in Seabar's case where his idea is now being used for this video. So if you have any suggestions, leave those in the comments down below, and who knows, you might see your suggestion and your comment in next week's top 5 video. So before we get into the list, a couple of things to go over at the beginning. So we are talking about just freemium ships here. So ships that can be purchased outright for doubloons or for cash are not included in this list. It's got to be one of the freemium ships. If you don't know what that means, freemium ships are ships that you can get for free through resources in the game, such as cold and free XP, that you don't have to fork over real world cash for. The second thing is that we aren't including any ships that have been removed from the game, from purchase, from readily available purchase. Like in last week's video, I was going over my top 5 cruisers, had more than a few comments asking where Alaska was. Well, Alaska has been removed from sale, and the only way to get Alaska is in the Black Friday event. So technically she is available once a year, but that's obviously not readily available. So that's why she was left off that list, and again why none of those ships will appear on this list. And finally, this is of course all 175% my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If everyone agreed, the world would be a very boring place. So let's go ahead and get on into the list, starting out at number 5, which is the Tier 7 British battleship, the Duke of York. The Duke of York is the freemium ship that I have to find myself defending the most when I include her in top 5 videos or when I speak highly favorably of her. And I find that to be a pretty odd situation because this is a really darn good coal ship. And this is a Tier 7 coal ship. So she costs way less than a Tier 10 coal ship. And she's still very good at what she does. And she gets compared to her sister, the King George V, quite a lot. Which, sure, they're the same class. They have a lot of the same parameters. But it isn't just a worse King George V, as many like to say. It's more of a side grade to the King George V, because the Duke of York is more AP focused. She has improved ricochet angles on her AP shells, which means that her AP bites at sharper angles that the King George V shells won't. But she still has the short fuse British BB AP, which means that she's great for dealing with cruisers, because she can bite at much more aggressive angles where the King George V couldn't. So when you have a cruiser in front of you, load up that AP, blast them with it, and you'll find yourself absolutely clapping them. And do remember, this is at Tier 7. They can see all the way down to Tier 6 and Tier 5 cruisers as well. Those very thinly armored cruisers that explode very, very well. She's great at dealing with those ships, with the short fuse AP and with the improved ricochet angles. Not only does she have that, she still does have British BBHE. Now, she does have a 2-second longer load time than the King George V, which is what everyone brings up when comparing Duke of York and King George V. And yes, sure, King George V is the better HE spammer. If you want to just HE spam, play King George V. But if you want to play a bit more of a traditional battleship out of the British battleship tech tree, this is the ship for you. They also gave her 2-kilometer hydro for whatever reason. That's very odd. Not 2-kilometer hydro. I think it's like 3 or 4-kilometer hydro. It's self-defense hydro. It's not like the German hydro that goes up to 6 kilometers that you can spot torpedoes for your fellow teammates with. But it's still usable. It's very usable. Of course, it's just a little odd. I mean, I guess, it is more AP focused, so I guess they figured you would be playing the ship a little bit closer in game, which, sure, you do with using AP a little bit more. But again, it's not like she's just garbage over the King George V. Sure, if you're just looking at pure HE spamming capabilities, sure, King George is better, but if you want to play a little bit different of a British battleship, more of a traditional battleship out of the British battleships, this is the ship for you. And not to mention, too, she's a premium at Tier 7 with British BBHE on 10 14-inch guns, which means she still can spam quite well with HE, and she still can rack up a large amount of damage for a Tier 7 ship going against Tier 9 ships, which means she gets that double up tier bonus to her income which means you make a fair bit of credits out of this ship if you can just start 2 or 3 fires on a tier 9 ship and get that damage coming in and get that economic bonus for doing damage to a ship 2 tiers higher than you. So she's a pretty darn good credit farmer as well. And not to mention too, since you're going to be running the same tank build on your British battleships that you are on the Duke of York, she's also a pretty darn good British battleship commander trainer. So it's a free ship, great British battleship commander trainer, a nice side grade to the British battleship line, and still a decent HE spammer. But yes, not as good as the King George V when it comes to that department, but a ship I do very much like. Alright, going on down to number 4, we have the Tier 9 German super cruiser, I guess just large cruiser now, the Agir. So the Agir is one of the last free XP ships. Wargaming kind of just silently executed these ships after, I think, the, what's the Tier 10? The Hayate, the gun-focused Shimakaze. And the Agir was, I think, like, one of the last 3 that they released. And she's still available for free XP. It's a bit of free XP, but if you just save up for your free XP over time, you'll have the ship in no time. And the Agir is sister ship to the Siegfried, but instead of the Siegfried having 15-inch guns, the Agir has the normal large cruiser caliber guns of 305 millimeters. That seems to be pretty standard for most of the large cruisers at Tier 9. And she is a really, really, really good ship. She has the German cruiser AP, which hits hard as hell for being cruiser caliber guns. Now, of course, enlarge that to 305 millimeter guns. Yeah, and then you can, of course, fit the commander skill, which gives you bonus damage to your AP shells. It's literally just free damage for some commander skill points. So you have some really heavy-hitting AP here with the Agir. You catch a cruiser's broadside, oh my god, you're probably taking away, like, shoot, if you get lucky and roll a couple of Citadels, 2/3 of their HP, if not outright deleting them, if Dispersion does favor you, of course, with, you know, RNG being RNG, your shells do get thwacked around a little bit with the Agir, of course. Downside is that the HE is pretty lackluster. It's the the German anemic cruiser HE that doesn't really have the best alpha, and of course Agir doesn't have the best cycle rate because it is a large cruiser. So yeah, the HE isn't great. You can HE spam, but it's not going to be that great. In many cases where I would fire HE and other large cruisers, I just keep AP loaded with the Agir, especially with the commander skill and how low the HE alpha is. When you find a destroyer and you're confident you can land most of your shells, I would just keep AP loaded, and you'll be doing, if most of the shells hit, more damage with the AP than you would with the HE. Now, of course, you want to break models and stuff, yeah, keep HE loaded, but it is that bad. 27mm bow, which is very nice for a Tier 9 large cruiser to have. That being said, she doesn't have any icebreaker bow or anything like that, just a large 27mm bow and a 27mm upper armor belt as well. And of course she has the normal German goodies, hydro torpedoes, 6-kilometer torpedoes. So this is a pretty good ship if you need to push it on a flank. It's one of the tankier Tier 9 large cruisers. Of course it still has the cruiser burn time, the battleship burn time and all that, but she isn't as well armored as something like Stalingrad, obviously. But I find myself being able to survive for quite some time in this ship thanks to the combination of a decently maneuverable hull with some 27mm bound stern armor, and of course those excellent AP shells are just excellent for this ship. And it is a Tier 9, so that means when you do damage to Tier 10 ships, you get that economic boost to your damage. And now that there are super ships in the game too, you get a boost from doing damage to those ships as well. And the AP on the Agir is very, very good at bodying into the super battleship's armor. She's fantastic for that, from my experience at least. Alright, going on down to number 3, we have the Tier 9 American destroyer. I don't know why that was so hard to say for me. The Black. Yes, the Black has returned. She's back in the army. She is one expensive ship, though, which is why she's at number 3. She costs, I think, like 1,000 less coal than the Nusashimi, which is, I believe, the most expensive destroyer in the armory. Yeah, and I think they cost just a little bit less than the some of the Tier 10 coal ships. So yeah, for a Tier 9, she's pretty pricey, but it is well worth it with the black. So what is the black? The black is a cracked out Fletcher. She's a Fletcher with radar, with her own unique torps that have long range, but they are incredibly slow. And she still has smoke. No heal though, but playing the ship right, the enemy DDs won't even know you were there before it's until it's too late for them. So Black is like one of the best cap contesters in the game. She has her own radar, so that means if you're in a cap with somebody else, they pop smoke or whatever, you pop your smoke, you radar them, and they're kind of stuck out in the open. Especially if you catch them without their cruisers supporting them, or if they don't have your radar cruisers on their side, it's almost a free kill for you as long as you're being mindful of their torpedoes and such. You just murder them, be a rabid chihuahua, protect your cap, get the cap, easy 1k XP right there. Move on to the next cap. She's of course good at what the American DDs do, hugging islands, using island cover to get guns on their targets. Of course, has a smoke screen as well, so if it does come down to it, you can just smoke and just HE farm as normal. And the torpedoes are surprisingly useful. They're so slow that I think that a lot of times players forget that either you might have stopped firing for a second to fire them, they might have assumed that you just completely missed, and then the torpedoes do show up. Very good against battleships that are, trying to hug in an island or hunker down into position if you get on their side and get the torpedoes on them. Again, it does take a hot minute to get there, but the range is very nice. And of course, it's the Fletcher. It's got the American shell arcs, which means that, like I said, great for hugging an island, hugging the corner of an island, abusing those shell arcs to where you can fire without getting detected. Because if you don't have, I think it's one half of your ship out from behind the island, your bloom won't go up. And since you have these American catapult guns, you can fire over the island while hugging the corner and staying undetected. It feels really dirty, but then you don't care once you see the damage start to come in. So yeah, just an absolute great ship. One hell of a cap contester. Great at murdering DDs that aren't paying attention or they get trapped in your radar. And absolutely a ship I would highly recommend you get, especially if you're into destroyers. If you're not into destroyers, you probably might want to pass on this one. But if you have all the other ships that you have in the armory, you want to try out something new, sure, it's a solid pick. And even if you're not great with her at first, you can go back, practice on some tech line DDs, and then come back to the black. And again, it's tier 9, so it gets the income bonus for doing damage to ships of higher tier on a tier 9 ship. Alright, coming in at number 2, we have the tier 9 German battleship, the Pommern. Because it's been a while since the Pommern's been on this list, but man, is this still a good ship? So, Pommern ranks high on this list for two main reasons. One, she's a really good battleship. Two, she's just so much fun to play. Now, yes, in today's meta, when you can get close, well, not when you can, when you get close, can you still get close to make the Pommern useful? Yes. Does it happen to every game? No. But good lord, when you get in close with the Pommern, when you get within that 12-kilometer range of your secondaries, the world is your oyster at that point, and the ship really, really shines. With the 12, 15-inch guns, and yes, she does have 15-inch guns, so she can't overmatch anywhere near what most other tier 9 and above battleships can, but she's got 12 of them, and it's the German AP, and it packs one hell of a punch, not to mention the mountain of secondaries, German secondaries she has on either side of her. So you can spec into IFHE if you want to, because, the guns are mostly 105s. I wouldn't, because fire chance on those guns is pretty decent, especially if you have someone like Luchen's Adrenaline Rush, and then you pop his secondary skill. You shoot. You really just pass out the meth to those gunners at that point. And with the fire chance on the secondaries, that's pretty nice. And plus, you still, like I said, have 15-inch guns. So there are going to be times in which you do need to load HE in the Pommern. And at that point, you're taking your 33% fire chance on those 12, 15-inch guns and cutting it down to like 16%. So that's why I don't run IFHE on it. If you do, that's fine. Your ship, run it your way. But you have that, you have torpedoes, you have hydro. So you've got all the German goodies except for a plane on this one ship that's specifically designed to brawl. And the armor's great too. It's an FDG. It's a 15-inch FDG. It's the FDG hull. If I forgot to mention that. So it has the exact same armor scheme, just has torpedoes and 15-inch guns without the spotter. Everything else is the same. It's just a knife fighting FDG with smaller guns. And she's great. If you have German battleships, of course, this is what you're going to be running on the battle cruiser line. So more than a capable German commander trainer here. And there's so many German premium secondary battleships now that the captain you have on this guy can be popped out to any of those other German battleships, like the Tirpitz, like the Odin, like the Scharnhorst. So a great pickup if you don't have a Pommern in your fleet yet, or if you have a growing German fleet, an excellent pickup for that. And again, high marks in the fun chart for me. But again, not every match is able to be as fruitful as the match you're watching right now, and it can be frustrating at times, but still a fun ship when you can get in the right situation. Going on down to number 1, we have the Tier 9 American monstrosity, the Kearsarge. Someone asked me a little while ago why the Kearsarge wasn't on my last top 5 premium ships video. Because it just gets a little tiring saying, yeah, go get the Kearsarge. Yeah, go get the Kearsarge. Yeah, go get the Kearsarge. Because it's true that this is probably the best Tier 9 premium ship in the game. Actually, no, it's probably one of the best Tier 9 premiums. No, it's the best premium in the game, hands down, probably, at this point. Why? Because you've got the Montana's firepower at Tier 9. You get 12 American 16-inch guns at Tier 9, and then you get planes on top of that. This is a hybrid ship, so you have, of course, that giant tumor in the middle of the ship with the flight deck that launches the Tiny Tim rocket planes that can, of course, pin everything that you need them to pin, do like 15k damage to the target, start 2 or 3 fighters, and you get them every 2 minutes. So you fire your guns 3 times, because you have a 36-second reload time on this amount of guns at Tier 9, launch your planes, and just do damage. The ship's so good at getting good, consistent damage in, which is why it was number 1, and I think like 4 or 5 videos in a row that I did a while ago when talking about premium ships and such. So that's why I excluded it, because I got tired of talking about her. But I mean, if we're being honest, yes, this is the one to get. And it's a coal ship, so it's a good thing that this particular ship is the best ship in the game, because everyone can get it just by doing their coal containers and their combat missions and stuff, and participating in an event here or there to get your to get your coal in for the day. She's a pretty fun ship to play, I'm not going to lie. She's best played from medium range. It's best to remember that this is a battleship with a flight deck, not a carrier with guns. You have the 45 caliber American 16-inch guns too, so the shells are quite slow. You don't have the 50 caliber guns of the Montana. Caliber refers to the length in naval artillery terms. So the guns are shorter, shells go slower. Guns are longer, shells go faster. So you're not even really that good at like 17 kilometers out. 15 kilometers in, it really is this thing's sweet spot. It's really well armored too, and it's actually pretty maneuverable. She goes 32 knots. She has a pretty darn good armor. The tumor, though, does not. So do be mindful of that when you are pushing in. It's only, I think it's 16 millimeters, which means every HE gun, except for the Italians, can pin it. So, yeah, be mindful of that. But other than that, she's a good ship, and I'd be lying if I told you otherwise. And yes, she is definitely one I would recommend if you have an American battleship tech line grind going. Great commander trainer for that. You can be using those same skills on the Kearsarge as you would on the Montana, Iowa, North Carolina, so forth and so on, which is, of course, a standard tank build, as most battleships run, because commander rework, you know. But she's a great ship, and one to pick up that's completely for free. So guys, let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What would you pick for your top 5 freemium ships? If you're wondering why I didn't include any Research Bureau ships, those are technically freemium ships. But for players that are just average Joes and stuff, they take an eternity to get. That's why I excluded them from this list. They take longer than a lot of steel ships to get too, because you have to regrind the line 6 or 7 times, and not everyone has the time to where they can sit down and just regrind lines all day. They're busy, you know, grinding other lines and such. So that's why I excluded them from this list. I forgot to mention that at the start of the video, so I'll bring it up here if you're wondering why. That is why. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. We're getting close to 40,000 subs. Make sure you stick around once we reach that goal, because we will be doing a 40k giveaway, just like we did for the past couple of milestones as well. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.